Welcome, everyone. We're about to embark on a deep dive into a truly unique corner of the Star Trek universe. Star Trek. Voyager. We're talking about the starship stranded 70,000 light-years from home, facing an epic 75-year journey back to Earth.
Voyager carved out its own space in the Star Trek world, premiering back in 1995, running for 7 seasons and giving us a total of 172 episodes. What sets it apart is the premise a lone starship flung to the far side of the galaxy, a journey we haven't seen in Star Trek before.
Yeah, and how they end up in that situation is incredible. It all begins with a being called the Caretaker, who is protecting a species called the Ocampa.
Right, he was pulling ships from all over trying to find someone to protect them. The Maquis ship Voyager was looking for and the USS Voyager both got caught in the middle and ended up in the Delta Quadrant.
It's like being pulled into another dimension. Now they're light years from home. Why couldn't they just use the Caretaker's tech to get back?
Well, Captain Janeway, Voyager's captain, had to make a choice. Her crew or the safety of the Ocampa. The Kazan were a threat. And to protect the Ocampa, Janeway chose to destroy the Caretaker's array.
Wow, destroying their only way home. That's a big decision, especially with 2 crews on board, Starfleet and the Maquis. And they weren't exactly friendly before this.
Think about it. Starfleet officers and Maquis, former Federation colonists, turned rebel fighters. It was definitely going to be tense.
How did they ever work together? I mean, survival in the Delta Quadrant had to be more important than old grudges.
Absolutely. They had to combine crews and put aside their differences to get home. Chakotay, the Maquis leader, became Voyager's first officer. B'Elanna Torres, half-human, half-Klingon Maquis, was made chief engineer. And Tom Paris, former Starfleet but joined the Maquis, became the helm officer.
It's amazing how a crisis can force people to work together. This also brings us to Captain Kathryn Janeway, the first female captain to lead a Star Trek series.
It was groundbreaking. She had to make tough calls, face moral dilemmas, and inspire her crew in the most difficult situations.
Speaking of challenges, what dangers did Voyager face in the Delta Quadrant? You mentioned the Kazan, but I'm guessing they weren't alone.
The Delta Quadrant was a fresh start for writers. They could create new species and challenges. The Kazan were there, but they were just one part of it.
Who else did they meet? Give us a sense of the Delta Quadrant's alien life.
Well, there were the Vidians, a species suffering from a terrible disease that forced them to harvest organs from other species. Not who you want to run into.
That's chilling, like something from a sci-fi horror movie. Any other species that come to mind?
Oh, the Hirogen, a nomadic, advanced species of hunters. They saw everyone else, even sentient beings, as prey. Voyager had some tense encounters with them. They really tested the crew's ability to adapt and outsmart them.
So we have the Kazan, the Vidians, and the Hirogen. Sounds like the Delta Quadrant is not the place to be stranded. Did Voyager ever run into anyone familiar from other Star Trek shows?
The Borg from The Next Generation had a big presence in the Delta Quadrant.
The Borg. That's a serious threat. What challenges did they bring to Voyager's journey?
They became a recurring problem, forcing Voyager to deal with something familiar but also different in this new part of space.
Voyager's journey wasn't just about distance. It was about dealing with different alien cultures and threats.
Exactly. It was about exploring space, but also the human condition, morality, and resilience.
Speaking of resilience, how did the crew cope with being so far from home with all these dangers? 75 years is a long time.
Their experience is a huge part of why Voyager is so interesting. They lost all the comforts of home, faced constant danger, and had to make hard choices in this uncharted territory.
It's the ultimate test of character. Who rises to the occasion and who breaks under pressure. Any moments that really show the human side of this journey.
There were moments of despair and hope. Fear of never seeing Earth again, missing loved ones. But there were also moments of connection, like the birth of Naomi Wildman, the first child born on Voyager. This brought a new feeling of community to the ship.
A child born on a starship decades from home. It's powerful, a symbol of hope, the future they were fighting for.
It shows what was at stake for them, and some characters went through incredible changes during the show.
I'm curious about the Doctor. The emergency medical hologram suddenly thrust into a full-time role. That must have been a unique experience.
His development is amazing. From a program for emergencies to becoming self-aware with a love for art, music, even humor, he became a part of the crew, a friend.
It makes you think about what it means to be alive. What about other characters? Any significant changes?
One of the biggest is 7 of 9, a former Borg drone who joins the crew.
A Borg on Voyager. That must have been tense.
Her fight to become an individual, to understand humanity after being part of the hive mind, is fascinating. especially her relationship with Janeway, who becomes a mentor to her.
Okay, so light years from home, danger all around, a 75-year journey. Did they ever try to shorten that trip, or did they just accept their fate?
Oh, they definitely didn't just accept it. They were always looking for shortcuts, upgrades, anything to get home faster.
I bet those attempts were full of hope and danger. What are some of the more memorable attempts to shorten their journey?
Oh, there are so many. One that comes to mind is when they found an ancient interstellar communications network.
Wait, hold on. That sounds interesting. But I think we'll save that for part 2 of our deep dive. We've only just scratched the surface of Voyager's journey.
There's so much more to explore, but for now, think about this. If you were stuck in the Delta Quadrant, what would be your top priority?
Welcome back to our deep dive into Star Trek, Voyager. When we left off, we were about to hear about Voyager's discovery of an ancient interstellar communications network. What made this network so special?
Imagine being stranded across the galaxy, cut off. Then they find this network built by some long-gone civilization that can send messages across incredible distances.
Like a message in a bottle,
Yeah.
right? A signal from the past. Were they able to use it to contact Starfleet?
Not directly, but it opened up some new options.
Mhm.
Back on Earth, Reginald Barclay, a Starfleet engineer, was working on a way to make Voyager's signal stronger. He used the ancient network to boost their communications. This allowed for some contact and data transfer.
So a lifeline, even if it wasn't a full connection. I bet that was great for morale. What about actually getting home faster? What were some of the more, let's say, unusual methods they tried?
Let me see. Oh, their encounter with the Krenim comes to mind. They had temporal weapon technology, which means they could actually manipulate time.
Time manipulation. That sounds pretty risky.
Yeah.
How did Voyager get involved with that?
The Krenim were using this technology to change history, trying to create a better timeline for themselves. Voyager got caught in the middle of it all. They went through what's known as the Year of Hell.
Year of Hell. That doesn't sound good.
It was a terrible time. Attacks, losses, the ship was falling apart. It almost broke Janeway and the crew. But Janeway, in the end, used the Krenim's own weapon against them to reset the timeline.
A close call with the time paradox? I'm guessing that wasn't their only experience with the dangers of shortcuts.
Oh no, not at all. Another one was when they traveled through a region of space called the Void. It was empty, no stars, no planets, like a cosmic desert.
Sounds bleak. How did they survive crossing that?
They had to go into stasis, kind of like suspended animation, for months. Imagine waking up after months in darkness, not knowing if you're any closer to home.
That's got to be tough mentally. It seems like even when Voyager found a potential shortcut, there was always a risk. What about improving their own technology? Did they try to make their warp drive better or develop new ways to travel?
They were always trying new things. One time, they developed a transwarp conduit, something that could significantly reduce their travel time.
A transwarp conduit. That sounds like a big step forward. Did it work?
For a little while, yeah. They were moving incredibly fast, but it wasn't stable. The ship was destroyed and only a few of the crew survived, thrown into the future. They had to race against time, literally, to stop the accident from happening.
It sounds like a lesson about being careful with technology. It seems like the universe was always testing them. Did they ever meet any species that offered to help, without any hidden motives?
There were a few, but trust was a big issue. One species said they had technology that could get Voyager home, but it was a trap. They were trying to use Voyager and its technology for themselves.
That's like space is full of scams, right? It sounds like Voyager mostly had to rely on themselves. Speaking of relying on themselves, didn't they meet someone familiar? Someone who liked to bend the rules of reality?
You mean Q? Yeah, he popped up a few times, unpredictable as ever.
I can only imagine the trouble he caused. Did he ever actually help them? Or was it just mischief?
It was always hard to tell with Q. Sometimes he was annoying, other times he gave them cryptic advice, maybe even pointed them in the right direction. You can never figure out what he was really up to.
More of a wild card than a friend. So they had setbacks, dangers everywhere. Did they ever find a more reliable way to speed up their journey?
One of their biggest discoveries was a network of ancient wormholes. They were unstable, could collapse, but they could potentially get Voyager back to the Alpha Quadrant faster.
So, not a straight path, but a bunch of cosmic shortcuts with their own risks. How did they handle this?
They spent a lot of time and resources mapping those wormholes, figuring out the risks, and trying to make them stable enough to travel through. It took a long time, but it gave them real hope of getting home sooner.
It sounds like they needed all their skills and courage just to try that. Did they have any help from Starfleet?
Remember that limited contact they made through the ancient network? It turned out to be very important. Starfleet shared crucial information and sent them supplies.
That must have been a relief, knowing they weren't forgotten, that people back home were working to help them. Did those efforts ever get them significantly closer to home?
That brings us to a major turning point in Voyager's journey. A visitor from the future showed up, a future version of Captain Janeway, who had lived through the entire 75-year journey. She decided she had to do something to change things.
Wait a minute, a future Janeway? Now it's getting really interesting. We'll have to hear about that when we come back for the final part of our deep dive. What do you think? Would you trust a future version of yourself if they suddenly appeared, offering help? Welcome back to our deep dive on Star Trek Voyager. Before the break, we were talking about a future version of Captain Janeway coming back to help her past self. What was going through her mind?
Imagine living through Voyager's journey, knowing how difficult and long it would be. Well, this future Janeway, after going through it all, decided she had to change things. She wanted to use her knowledge of the future to get her past self and the crew home faster.
She was willing to take a big risk? What kind of knowledge or tech did she bring from the future?
Future Janeway had some advanced tech that Voyager acquired during its long journey, even some Borg tech. She knew the dangers they'd face. She was even willing to bend the rules, even Starfleet regulations, to get them home.
Changing the timeline can be unpredictable. Were there any unexpected consequences from her actions?
It's always a possibility when you mess with time. But future Janeway was focused on getting her crew home safe, even if it meant facing some unknown consequences.
So how did future Janeway's actions actually get Voyager back? Was it one big event or a lot of smaller things?
It was a bunch of things. Borg tech, that transwarp conduit they tried before, and outsmarting a Borg queen who wanted to stop Voyager.
A Borg queen. Sounds like the Borg were always causing trouble for Voyager.
And 7 of 9. Her knowledge of the Borg turned out to be really important. She had been part of the collective, so she knew how they thought and their weaknesses.
Someone they thought was a danger became a huge help. Did they ever officially team up with the Borg? Or was it more of a temporary thing?
There were times they had to work together, just to survive. They even teamed up with the Borg to fight a common enemy, species 8472. It shows how Voyager had to be creative and adaptable to survive in the Delta Quadrant.
Their journey was about diplomacy and making unusual alliances as much as it was about technology. After all that, the danger, the sacrifices, did Voyager make it back to the Alpha Quadrant?
They did. They returned to Earth, forever changed by their experiences, but they made it. It was a bittersweet victory, full of joy, but also a sense of loss for everything they went through.
I can only imagine the stories they could tell, like a space odyssey. What do you think changed the most about Captain Janeway after that journey?
That's a tough one. Think about it. She started as a typical Starfleet captain, but the Delta Quadrant forced her to make decisions no one else had. She had to be a diplomat, a warrior, a scientist, but most importantly, a leader who kept her crew going even when things seemed hopeless.
It shows that leadership is not just about following the rules. It's about making hard decisions, being flexible, and never giving up hope.
Exactly. And for everyone listening, what part of Voyager's trip through the Delta Quadrant resonated with you the most? What would you take from their experience and apply to your own life? Their story is about overcoming challenges and doing what seems impossible.
Well said. It seems their 75-year journey wasn't just about getting home. It was about discovering what they were truly capable of. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Star Trek Voyager. It's a story that still inspires and challenges us today.